Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the second episode of the MuscleMind podcast. My name is Matthew Foster. We have the whole crew here. We have Mr. the fantastic looking Cody Robinson. We have Linda Ratliff here. Today...
Wait a minute, she's not good looking?
Yeah, of course. I just didn't want to make her feel, super blessed.
Okay, go for it.
Right, like you don't.
Yeah, come on now. All right, so today we are going to talk about a really fun topic and one that is circled around in the health and fitness industry all the time. We're going to be discussing HIIT versus LISS, high intensity interval training and low intensity steady state cardio. Cody, are you excited?
Amped.
Cool. This was I'm amped. This is something that I know I get asked a lot about. I'm sure you guys have been asked a lot about it over the years and probably on a weekly basis. But just to kind of let everybody know, we're not really going to say one's better than the other one. We're more or less going to talk about the advantages, disadvantages, pro cons, when the proper time to use each form of cardio would be. So we don't want you to get the idea that we think, if you're doing HIIT, you're doing it wrong, or if you're doing LISS, you're doing it wrong, stuff like that. So,
but hopefully we'll give you more insight to the things you can throw into your training. Sometimes people get stagnant even doing the HIIT training. That's all they do all the time. And anyway, so yeah, we're going to hit it from all different angles.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
I'm just agreeing right
You're
now. Just agreeing.
Yeah. So,
I'll have plenty to say.
so what kind of
So let's describe what they are.
Yeah, so
not just
go ahead, Linda.
Not just the low intensity interval, but so HIIT training. Cody and I were talking earlier about people think because it's HIIT, it's automatically high intensity and it's high impact. Mm-hmm. but it's not necessarily. It can be a lower impact and still high intensity because the intensity is really your heart rate or your VO2 max.
Mm-hmm. It definitely depends on your fitness level. Someone that isn't experienced, someone working out for a long time, they might, reach that VO2 max with the heart rate up doing burpees, while someone might get it, maybe doing a jumping jack.
Exactly.
It also depends on your fitness level.
Yeah, I would say, so high intensity interval training, when people hear that, I feel like, at least this day and age, most often, probably more times than not, their head probably goes to like CrossFit or Iron Tribe or those types of high intensity, which are usually also high impact training. One thing, and I think it's quite, what am I trying to say? I think it's like in your world, like for you, Matt, I say your world, meaning like the way that you train yourself. Mm-hmm. What would you consider high intensity aside from just the workouts? Like you have high intensity intervals that you do on a treadmill, like to drop fat. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, like one of the basic, HIIT training protocols that I do is, incline sprints on the treadmill. And that, as far as like HIIT is concerned, you're definitely right. I think the majority of the people, they do kind of swing towards like the CrossFit style deal, but it's definitely not like that. You can utilize HIIT doing anything. For example, if there's many ways to do HIIT though. You can do it with time. Mm-hmm. 30 seconds on, you can do 30 seconds off. Say you're doing like incline sprints, which I have all my ladies do. It's really good for the butt, by the way. But if you're doing like incline sprints, do 30 seconds of sprints, 30 seconds of rest. That's considered a HIIT training protocol. Right. And you can break that down though, and from 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off, something like that. So that, for me, as far as HIIT training goes with myself or my clients or something, we usually do time deals.
Right. What do you feel like is the benefit of you doing it that way?
Well, so I kind of got into the whole interval style training and things like that with just my training. Whenever I first started working out, that's what I did. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I did it, because I always felt like my heart rate would, say you're doing like 3 sets of, let's say you're doing burpees at 30 on, 30 off, something like that. During that first set, your heart rate's going to get up. Mm-hmm. Okay, that 30 seconds of rest is going to allow it to drop down a little bit. And then you do another set 30 seconds on, it's going to go higher than it was. Mm-hmm. Then it'll drop down a little bit more. Then it'll go higher than it was. And then it'll drop down a little bit more. That's why I like it and it's a really good way to get in shape.
Yeah, I think No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of people, you know, kind of battle with that steady state approach as well. That's something I've always kind of dealt with. I mean, we were doing a decent amount of research back behind the HIIT training. I think a lot of people, and I think this is probably what you're going to jump into, Linda, here in a second, was that I think some people will go to it specifically in order to kind of ramp up their cardiovascular fitness without having to think of it like a marathoner or a long distance, you know, kind of steady state type of person, because you really can work your heart muscle. And
if you do it wrong, for sure.
Yeah, improve your, you know, you can improve your VO2 max and those type of things by doing it. But then also I know that I think the capacity that Matt really does it as well, and there's more and more research I think supporting it, that it is a really good way to drop fat. One thing that I was talking about, and my favorite thing to bring up, is actually EPOC, which is the essence of HIIT training. I guess, like Matt said, probably 30 years of research, at least 25 years of research that's covered it. EPOC is, what is it, excessive, oh man, my mind just went blank. Excess post-oxygen
Yes, consumption.
Oh, sorry, my apologies on that. Yeah, so what that's really saying is the fact that you're doing these high intensity bouts, you know, you can't do it for a long period of time, so you're doing more of anaerobic, what they call anaerobic training versus aerobic training, which means, you know, your body is able to only use so much oxygen, and if it's not able to replenish it by doing these bursts, you have to start pulling from other energy systems and all this. Go ahead.
Real quick, we'll go back. We'll obviously start. I'll make sure you circle back to the EPOC, but explain to our listeners the difference between aerobic and anaerobic exercise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so the biggest difference. So aerobic, air, like you're actually talking, it's pertaining to air, like use of oxygen.
Yeah.
So that's why when you do like regular running, or when what we usually say cardio is traditional ways of cardio, brisk walking, running, swimming, all that stuff. That's specifically aerobic, because you're at a state to where your body, as you're breathing, your body can actually synthesize like this oxygen. It goes into your bloodstream so you can kind of keep going. Anaerobic, which for I think a lot of fitness people, they immediately think of anaerobic as just like weightlifting.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're using the muscles, you're actually like having to contract the muscles and move this stuff, and so it doesn't require as much oxygen to be able to do that. But then the other aspect, I guess, avenue of it, as we're talking about doing the HIIT, is because you're doing it at such a higher intensity that you're not able to sustain it. So your body actually starts using up the oxygen that's in the blood, and then therefore actually starts to, like I said, to have to pull from those other energy systems. And since you use all that oxygen up, your body's having to pull and adopt and absorb more oxygen, and that's why actually you continue to burn calories, even some will say up to 48 hours past you doing that workout bat. But go ahead, you got a bunch of stuff to go through.
Well, just, you know, from my experience, which, you know, years ago people used to talk about aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic was with oxygen, like you're saying. Anaerobic was without. So that was just a simple way to explain it to everybody. But your way of explaining it was much more informed. So thank you.
That's why he's a smart one.
I know. Right?
You're the good-looking one. He's a smart one. No.
But also, what's cool about the different HIIT training protocols, there's things like you said, like the EPOC theory, but fartlek training can be considered.
I was going to get that here in a little bit.
Which is a fun word to say.
Fartlek. Yep.
When I tell somebody we're going to do fartlek training,
Yeah. What?
So fartlek, for those of you who don't know, because it is a fun word to say, is FART, like you're thinking, LEK.
One word.
That's actually one thing I was going to kind of get to, because we're talking about steady state training, like at a consistent pace. Most people think of distance runners and marathon runners, but they still train at different capacities of intensity levels.
Yeah.
And so, what makes them, you know, it's a different level of athlete. I wanted to go into type 2 and type 1 muscle fibers there for a second, but I think I'll come back to that. But like fartlek, I'll let you get back to it, because you may actually have examples of what that may look like. But in essence, it actually means like speed play. So even while you're running, you'll have, you know, like faster pace and a cadence, with a much slower cadence. So you're testing those different energy systems. And you can elaborate on that. I definitely want you to talk about Tabata stuff, because I think you're the Tabata queen.
Yeah, so fartleks are exactly what you're saying, but you vary it and you change it up so you don't know what's coming next, really. So your body does have to adapt. But what's cool about it is you can do it with just running. You can, so I used to tell the kids when I was training them on the soccer field, when we do a fartlek run, there's a jog, there's a run, and there's a sprint. That's all I wanted them to think about. So and I'll, make them jog, and I'd have them jog for 30 seconds and then sprint and then run. So that's kind of, but you can do it with other things. You can do it with kettlebells. You can do it with incorporating different exercises. So do 3 different types of exercise in one part of your workout for 10 minutes.
So give me an example of what that would look like.
So doing like half jacks might be just a very low intensity, like you're walking, and then you're going to go into kettlebell swings, and then you're going to go into burpees, and so you're going to keep switching that up.
Would you do it for like 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30?
You vary it. You just keep varying it. So you don't really know what's coming next, and your body has to adapt.
You're so good about
that's good.
messing people up in that manner. I don't want to go off topic, but like you mentioned like an EMOM earlier.
Yeah, EMOMs.
EMOMs are awesome.
That's really getting into like, you mentioned like doing like the CrossFit and you might mention gyms, but like CrossFit or something like that. That when you get into like EMOMs and Tabata cycles and doing AMRAPs, see, I do.
You got to name these things though. Some people may not know what these are.
Yeah,
what
so
they mean.
Yeah, if you do, I'll let you talk about Tabata cycles. I do Tabata cycles a lot.
I mean, what's the acronym?
Just say it with the acronym. Yeah, if you do like Tabata and you have like an AMRAP, which is as many rounds as possible. So as an example, this might not, and this is the cool thing about doing workouts like these is you can make this into a small conditioning session, a small hit training at the very end of your strength training workout, if that's how you want to split it up, or you can do this for an entire workout. So if you're doing an AMRAP, which is as many rounds as possible, let's say you set it up for like 10 minutes, but maybe you do that after your strength training. So that's a good conditioning session after you do your strength. But if you want to expand it out, say you do it for like 40 minutes, so you pick 3, 4, 10, 20 exercises, and you pick a number and you do as many rounds as you can in a certain time frame. That's the cool thing about it. I think you can always plug those in anywhere.
Yeah.
Getting to the CrossFit, someone was just smart enough to put a name behind it, and that's just what I think about it. You know, as far as and then and EMOM is every minute on the minute. So if let's say you're doing,
Oh, sorry. She's got an example.
Go ahead. Bomb queen on that. I mean, this.
No, you start.
I'll let you.
I'm sorry. Yeah. She had an example. Go ahead.
No, I love it. But let's just say, for example, from my end, if you do like 10 push-ups, 10 squats every minute on the minute for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's real. So every minute, if it takes you 30 seconds to knock out 10 squats, 10 push-ups, you got 30 seconds of rest. But over that 8th, 9th, 10th round, your rest is going to get smaller and smaller. Right. That's just how it. But that's working at your max capacity. It's just like doing what I was talking about HIIT training. If you do 30 seconds on, your heart rate gets up a little bit, it'll drop down a little bit. Right. It gets up again, it'll drop down a little bit lower. So that's just, it's incorporating those things is fantastic. I know we're talking a lot about HIIT. We'll get into LISS, I promise. We'll get into LISS.
The other thing with the EMOM is what I was telling him earlier was with a client this morning, we just did one arm dumbbell snatch. Second minute you did 2. Third minute you did 3.
Yeah, it's like
but
an
even with
ladder.
EMOMs or every minute on the minute, there's so many different things you can do with it.
Sure.
So many different styles, so many, so it's easy and it's fun, and it's what we try to do is save our clients time. So we try to do things.
That was my next segue. You got to get back on EPOC.
So sorry.
Oh, I'll get back to it. Don't you worry. What I was going to say was, what was his response when you did it this morning?
So this morning, that first one, he's like, really, I got to wait? Yep, you got to wait till that next minute.
That's right.
But then by about the 13th minute, he's like,
he's done. But that's that ascending ladder up to that kind of stuff, and that's the same thing as just slowly getting your heart rate up, and you rest, up, rest, up, rest. So it's not like jumping your heart rate up to 170 real quick and leaving it there.
You're building on your both anaerobic and aerobic capacity by doing this.
Just laying them out both.
Right.
And to get into Tabata cycles, I'll talk a little bit. You can kind of segue through, but Tabata cycles 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off times 8. That's a full Tabata. That's the true Tabata. And you can change it up and do different things. Even 30 on, 30 off. If you technically want to call it a Tabata, technically, if that's what you want to lump it in and keep it simple, you could do that. But every time I have clients do Tabata cycles, they look at me crazy when I say 8 rounds. And that little 10 seconds of rest period goes by very, very quickly. If you want to do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, Tabata is not like an acronym like we use EMOMs.
Right.
It's actually Dr. Tabata who came up with the training protocol.
Right.
And you're right. It's that the true meaning behind it is that really high intensity for 10 seconds on, 20 seconds rest, or 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. Sorry.
Yeah.
Benefits are the same. That we're looking for a quick, fast, easy workout. But one of the drawbacks, and then we'll start getting into some of those, is it's a really high training protocol and people don't stick with it because it's too hard for some people.
That's the next topic, and we'll talk about it in just a second. But guys, the thing with HIIT, and I try to explain this to the clients the best way as possible. If let's say you're doing jump squats and it's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or you're doing an EMOM or something like that. If you don't go full speed, it's not considered a HIIT. You're not considered doing high intensity. High intensity interval training is designed and meant you go all out, balls to the walls as hard as you can for whatever period that you're going. If you're doing, jump squats at 60% for 20 seconds and resting for 10, you're not getting the full impact of doing an actual full HIIT training session. So if you're doing HIIT training, you've got to go all out, especially with things like Tabata cycles and something that's timed. You got to go max effort all out. Now, if you're doing like an EMOM, like that first set, maybe you're doing one snatch for the first minute, go all out, then you have that rest period. That's cool. But when you get up to the 13, 14, 15 round, you're pushing yourself as hard as you can because that's the whole point. That's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say as we're talking about this stuff, because I think a lot of people are still intimidated by the thought of HIIT training. Some people will jump into it full bore without any type of foundation built up. And of course, with the right kind of trainer, you can still jump into it safely. One thing is one I kind of brought up, like the low intensity interval training, where I feel like that actually might have a place because you don't want to do it all the time. And I still struggle sometimes with trying to go back to that steady state because I like to get on I'm not going to lie, I'll get on a stinking elliptical and read a book or read an article for like a dang hour. Most people hate that stuff. But I mean, but we'll get to the steady state stuff because I actually want to talk about how that while it can burn calories and fat, it may not be the absolute best way to shred your adipose tissue and all that stuff or that type of fat. But anyway, but I would say from a low intensity standpoint, if you're taking like these, let's say you look up a HIIT, workout or whatever, and you are intimidated by it. Well, one thing I'd recommend from a low intensity standpoint, what you can do is take that, basically increase the duration of time. Adjust it, and then do it at a more laid back pace or a slower pace until your joints, your body, your tendons, your ligaments, everything starts to kind of pick into place. So you can still build into it versus going from walking an hour and a half on the treadmill to jumping into HIIT. You can transition. That's a great point, and that's to kind of, and that involves if you have a trainer, that involves his knowledge and understanding of what it is that he's doing as well. I've seen athletes, like D1 athletes who have strained like ACL, like their ligaments by doing a Tabata from sitting and standing so quickly, but you have a risk as you get exhausted of snapping your form. You snapping a leg back, you hyperextend it or whatever. So anybody that's doing HIIT, you do got to listen to your body. Even when the trainer's yelling at you, good trainers still be keeping an eye on you though. And that's where I have issues with CrossFit. Yeah. Because it's basically like doing high intensity interval training with these Olympic lifts. So you can do high intensity interval training doing mountain climbers and get damn near the same effect as you taking a massively huge kettlebell and doing, the whole point is getting your heart rate and getting that fat burning zone. That's what I have a problem with CrossFit, is using weights or these compound lifts, doing that style of training at that high intense level with the weights. You do have a lot of good CrossFit coaches that have a knowledge and foundation. And that really depends on that, and that does also depend on that. So any of you that are CrossFit coaches that are not dogging that are clients. I'm just saying that in general. I'm just saying let's any even Orange Theory, talking about EPOC.
Oh,
training.
sure. Yeah, 100%.
Orange Theory, that's the whole foundation of that, is that you're trying to get yourself to a high level of heart rate, so you're basically just depleting the oxygen out of your body and recover. I mean, stuff that so many of us do as trainers, yet you have a screen and you have different things, so you have, I guess, the community of it. But I've also known coaches at Orange Theory who have degrees in exercise science. I've also known coaches who have no background, and they're just throwing them, having them do weights between intervals. And these clients, what's interesting is we get a lot of the casualties. We've had CrossFit who have torn rotator cuffs from snatches. We've had Orange Theory, people that come to us because we can really customize, to you. But anyway,
that's kind of generally true though with the gyms, with whether it's a box or whether it's the Orange Theory or anywhere.
Do your research.
Is you may have a really good trainer there, or you may not necessarily have a really good trainer. There's just across the board. There's too much variation there.
And especially dealing with HIIT, it's important.
It's important to find out who's training you, what kind of degrees they have, what kind of background they have, how well educated they are, because the education it plays a big role in knowing how far you can push somebody and knowing when to help them set their limits, because a client doesn't always know their limits.
Right.
Sometimes they're not going to push hard enough, but sometimes they're going to push too hard.
And sometimes they're stubborn and they'll try to go beyond what they actually can do.
And in a gym setting,
competitive.
When you're watching 10 people, you're not going to be able to focus on that person close enough where when you get that one-on-one attention, they're watching everything you do.
Yeah. What gets me is when a client is, they're more afraid of letting you down.
Yeah, for sure.
Than actually completing like that
being safe about it.
That safe rep. And we know we know if you're giving it your all or not. And if you end up having to stop and we're not saying anything to you, we understand you've pushed it as far as you can go.
Right.
But
yeah, we're not going. Go. We're going. Keep it tight.
Some trainers would.
Yeah.
And that's important for people to understand.
What's your boot camp rules? You only have 2 rules, don't you? Or one.
One of them is don't pass out. Right. That's my only rule.
You can throw up, but you can't pass out.
You can throw up, just don't. If you pass out, that's your fault. You're literally. I mean, if you pass out working out, whose fault is it? It's yours, because you push. You should know when you should stop. But if you're in like a boot camp trainer setting doing something one-on-one, your trainer should know different signs, different things like that. Leading into, especially doing like this high intensity interval stuff. That's what it is. I mean, it's getting it up there.
Yeah. Sorry, I got something. As we're talking about passing out, so this is something. So I've never had anybody pass out on me.
Jessica Bennett, I had you almost pass on me last week. First ever in 6.5 years.
Don't do it.
Well, here's the thing. So this is kind of another area, and it does pertain to high intensity training, especially when people jump right into it.
Yeah.
And this pertains to like your blood sugar as well. So for those of you that we're basically calling you out and saying it's your fault, we're about to tell you what signs to pay attention to, so we don't have to blame you for passing out. Because frankly, once your blood sugar, once it bottoms, it is truly one of the worst feelings you will ever experience.
I agree.
And I've only had 3 people that's gotten close, and I've identified the sign because I understand the signs because I've gone through it. Never passed, but actually something happened to me one time. I had another trainer close by. I said, "Do you have anything sweet close by?" And she was like, "What do you mean?"
Gummy bears.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ones. So she was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm actually getting close to like my sugar's bottoming out." So and I started kind of getting this tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And then so she went and got it, and so I was able to kind of get in my system and kind of bounce back out of it. That's one of the things too. So like a lot of people don't know. They ask what to eat before a workout. You can have the fasting and that type of stuff, and that does depend on the person and the type of workout and your timing and all that stuff. But just a couple signs to pay attention to. If you really start kind of getting disoriented, like if you're like I call it kind of going into a tunnel. You really need to hit pause. Like for me, I usually ask clients immediately. Like I said, I've only had like 3 people get close to doing it because I usually can watch it or gauge it before it gets too far gone. But I usually find a piece of gum or there's honey sticks. There's
gummy bears.
Gummy bears are ideal. But I'm just thinking like whatever you have close on hand, because even like gum, it's just sugar. It's just sugar alcohols. It's not even sugar, so it pulls your blood sugar back up. but you still need to get something in your system
Yeah.
out of that. Anyway, that's just
It's
one
a
of the
great
worst
point, though.
feelings. And
Yeah.
it's not for those trainers that are listening. It doesn't really. They don't really want to come back to you after that. After
That's
that
true.
happens.
It's a.
So that should be in our emergency kit. Just
So I've had several people go to that point whenever they first work out with me.
Right, the first time. It's usually the first one.
Usually the first time, and I always have gummy bears. And gummy bears always work. Dr. Jim Stepani, do you know who that is?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's one of the
I
only
actually.
people I follow in the health and
PhD in
fitness
exercise
world.
physio.
Yeah, and he's tatted from head to toe. And he did a huge clinical research on gummy bears and pixie sticks.
Yeah.
And those two are the best things you can have. I have gummy bears.
He does, yeah.
I eat gummy bears after every single workout
Yeah.
because your glucose levels and your
I was about to say you're trying to ramp yours back up when you do that.
right, and that's
if
kind of.
you want to
But that's how
elaborate.
because I've always for years and years and years I would work out really really intensely and I was not hungry for 2 or 3 hours after,
Yeah.
and I couldn't eat anything until I started eating gummy bears, and it would kind of level everything off. And about 30 minutes later, I was hungry. Then I was took me forever to figure out what was wrong. And now every last one of my clients eat gummy bears after workouts.
So what is it?
As far as the reason being,
Yeah, why do gummy bears help him to want to eat? I guess.
There's something because it's fast digesting sugars.
Right.
Those and pixie sticks are really, really fast digesting, so it doesn't stick to your body. So your body's not going to hold on to it. Your body's going to use it up and get rid of it.
it's if anything too, and then whatever you eat, like it's gonna
In like
but it's
dummy
gonna pull
terms.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
gonna, it's gonna pull stuff into your muscles to help.
So your muscle, then you feel like eating. within
Well,
the
no,
hour.
if you have because obviously after you work out, all your blood sugar levels and your glucose are all over the place. They
Well, your
usually
body,
bottom.
your blood
Yeah.
sugar is when it comes to resistance training, of course, high intensity. If you're doing
You're
these
both.
types of HIIT
Yeah.
stuff, you're doing both, and one tanks it. But when you're depleting out of your system, like you've got to get it back up.
You got to get it back up, and if you don't, your body's going to stay there. It'll slowly get back up.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it'll slowly.
it will.
This
climb.
just helps it. I know, if someone's having like a really tough workout, like I had a client yesterday, she was having we did heavy squats towards the end of the week, and I was just about maxing everyone out roughly, and that she was having like a rough workout. She was struggling, and she said, "Can I have some gummy bears?" So I gave her a few gummy bears, and instantly she finished the workout strong.
So we should get gummy bears to be our sponsor.
That's true.
That would be
I actually got a 5-pound bag upstairs. You can get 5-pound
I have them all
bags.
the time. I keep them with me. If someone's going to pass out, give them gummy bears. They're fine.
It's so good. But yeah, Stepani would say there's only, which we need to get back to the main topics here in a second, but he'd say there's 2 times you should intentionally spike your insulin if you're trying to like build muscle mass or kind of build, and that's as soon as you wake up in the morning to get, of course, there's the different the fasting fasting workouts, but
He's a huge proponent of that.
But I've actually followed some of his prior programs.
Yeah.
He would say he would spike it in the morning, but more so with like some kind of protein shake or whatever, and then immediately post his workout.
Yeah, that's
because you're using it to your favorite. You're using it to your favor.
Well,
You're
your
not
body's
going to
like-
store it as fat.
Yeah, because your body's like, just give me whatever.
Right.
And that's the best thing you can put into your system. But
So as far as storage of fat, I think that might be a good time to kind of transition into the age-old method of low intensity.
real
steady
quick,
state.
so just to kind of recap,
Oh, yeah.
just a couple of pros for HIIT training.
It's
Yeah.
quick, like you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. The whole Tabata thing said you could do a 20-minute Tabata and burn as many calories as you would in an hour of steady state.
And that comes back to the EPOC, because your body is having to fight to get that oxygen back, so it's continuing to burn. That's one reason. There's more.
There was
reasons.
another neat one, the 10-20-30,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
where it's backwards actually. You go slow for 30 seconds, you go moderate for 20 seconds, and then you hit it hard for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So again, it's the same kind of hit, but different formula.
Right.
But so the another advantage would be all the different things you can do with it, just the ways you can vary it and change it.
On that note, I forgot to say it earlier. I recommend you guys look up Ply Yoga, PLYOGA. I think it's plyyogafitness.com. I haven't put Matt through one of these workouts yet,
Bring it.
but I've told him about it
Just
because
get-
he loves yoga now, apparently.
Oh no.
But no, look it up. I mean, I know Christine Connolly, she came down from New Jersey about 2 years ago and certified some of us here. It is truly one of the most intense things I've ever done, because it is a combination of plyometrics and yoga. But the two ladies, or the lady that originally come up with it, or elite athlete. I mean, she's an elite athlete. I mean, there's pro teams that are starting to use this, and it's truly high intensity, but it's crazy because the fact that you'll do, like for example, you'll do like 45 seconds of like split jumps. You know, like you're just doing these crazy, just all out, all you can do, and then you'll land in like a warrior 2 pose for like 10 seconds. So you're gassed from doing that, but then you stop, and your body is like,
that's your rest period.
It's your rest period. Right. So you're actually working on your mobility and everything, but then your body is dying to move again because you're like, crap, this hurts so bad to hold. And it's a straight hour of different segments. It's supported. There's a lot of exercise science, background behind it, the way that it's structured. If you really want to take, and what I found myself, it was interesting enough. I was wobbling and stuff, doing tree poses the first 20 minutes, but by the end, I was nailing all these poses. So you're talking about the what they call proprioception of your body's ability to like land and hit and stabilize and respond to stressors, and it pushes like every button.
Sounds like a great time.
Every button. Yeah. No, you talking about blood sugar? That was actually one event that I had to step. I left. I walked out. I was like, I need a bagel, so I grabbed a bagel and I jumped back in there.
I mean,
So anyway, there's so many fun things you can do.
What's it called again? Play Yoga. Playyoga.com. So you guys go there and check that out, man. It sounds like you've mentioned it probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, I just hadn't had you do it yet.
I know.
But there's low impact ways of doing that. Before we transition off, that's one more thing I want to talk about. You can still do high intensity with low impact.
Sure.
A lot of your impact on your jumps, your boundings.
You can do high knees stationary for 30 on 30, whatever.
Yeah, but you can do body weight squat, like quick squats, like Tabata. A lot of times we'll just have you do body weight squats. You talked about kettlebells though, which I thought was a good transition.
I do love kettlebells.
As far as like some examples of what you could do as far as low impact but high intensity with those.
Yeah.
Anything
specific? No, not now.
No? Okay.
We're going to segue, I think.
Gotcha.
So, LISS training. So, low intensity, steady state cardio. Now,
that even sounds boring the way you just said it.
That's why I said it that way.
Because that's the way. But there is a place for it. There is places.
No. I think it's good. Now, this is my perspective of this is if you do like fasted training, it's it's a very effective way for me.
Okay.
So I have a lot of my ladies do fasted cardio a couple of days a week if they're really wanting to drop some body fat and lean out they have like, let's say they're going to the beach in a couple of weeks. Then I'll have them jump on a couple of days of fasted LISS cardio in the morning. Your body is that gets into fasted, but so that's where I stand on it. But just to kind of recap, and I'll let you guys run with it. LISS training can include treadmills, ellipticals, recumbent bikes, upright bikes, arc trainers, walking around your neighborhood, swimming, any kind of just low intensity, steady state cardio.
Now, we're talking about low intensity, steady state. Now, a lot of times people will talk about, like we usually look at heart rate ranges. So now what's interesting about all this stuff is that our certifications will kind of vary on what ranges to be in or what would classify as a lower steady state. I feel like for me, you're kind of looking more at about 50%, maybe
50 to 60.
less, 50 to 60% of your your resting heart rate should be, which is easiest way to do math is 220 minus your age, and then multiply that by the percentage. So 60%. Like for me, I think if I'm around like 100, I'm like the 120, like between 110 and 130 on my beats per minute heart rate, then that's kind of a steady state. You can do it for a longer period of time, but it's high enough to where you're at least getting something done. You're not just casual walking.
So for most of our clients, so we're not going to be testing your heart rate. We don't necessarily do that. So we use RPE, rating of perceived exertion.
Right.
So it is really learning your body and understanding when you're pushing moderately hard, really hard, or all out.
Right.
And you learn that you can learn it pretty quickly if you're training on a regular basis. So so heart rate's a great way. It's more accurate, but rating of perceived exertion is really probably the best method to use when you're working out.
So I think all that stuff's like awesome. VO2 MAX, all that what you're talking about. I keep it really stupid simple. I don't even have people worried about that.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
that's just what I don't even talk to people, because I think sometimes it goes over most people's heads when you're discussing.
Right.
Like,
And that's why the RP or just kind of knowing that's why, but I'm always going to be the one that's going to bring it up, at least in the podcast, because we're trying to get nerdy.
Yeah.
But this also gives depth that what we are thinking about, even though we may not share with you while you're trying to keep pushing and keep going, because you really could care less what your heart rate is at that point. A lot of times.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, that's kind of how I look at LISS. But I mean, if you're just like a couple of times, just for the audience, when do you think the best time to do low intensity steady state cardio is?
Yeah, for me, my first response, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, is really like for active recovery. Like for me, like for example, this week I really got back into doing like those treadmill intervals that I've kind of jumped into it, because I need to drop some fat. I mean, the reason we train is because we usually are struggling with that stuff ourselves, but I wanted to kind of mix it up. But I also did a really good, like hard, like leg workout. And so the soreness had really set in. And so I still did some interval stuff, some high intensity interval stuff, like on the elliptical or whatever. I know I'm that guy, that one dude.
Hey, I use elliptical some.
But
screw it.
But like when you're trying to recover, like you've broken those muscles down. I do want to talk about DOMs here in a second.
Sure.
But what it does, like it brings fresh blood to your muscles. Your muscles have been torn down, they're broke down, the soreness is there, and by doing this steady state, you're bringing fresh blood to the areas that have been broken down. You're pushing out all the byproducts, like what they call like the lactic acid buildup, even though technically it's gone like within about 24 hours.
Yeah.
You actually doing that stuff, but also helps with repair. And okay, go. Sorry.
That's okay. So
mic drop.
So honestly, I mean, I'm going to give somebody like a 5-day-a-week workout, and it's going to include 3 days of steady state, and it's going to be 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And then 2 days of HIIT, 2 days in there of some like weight training too. So, but it's going to be mixed up. And for me, as I've gotten older, I like the steady state a little bit more, but I love hiking. So hiking, walking and stuff like that. Plus I like to be outdoors. I love an elliptical, but I don't have one, so I don't use one right now. But it's important. The main thing is it's important to incorporate a little bit of everything.
Right.
You're going to want
exactly what I was about to talk about. Yeah.
Some steady state. You're going to want some HIIT. You're going to want some weight training. And then just the order of how you put that together is important, but it's not as important as making sure you get it all in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I agree.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, it's totally true. I think both HIIT and LISS both belong in people's fitness programs. They both belong in there. That's like, adding in ab and core workouts. Like we all know abs are made in the kitchen, but you still want to incorporate a few core exercises a week or whatever to keep your core strength strong. And I think, mixing them together is a great thing. If you hop on the treadmill at an incline run or incline walk for 10 minutes, hop off, do a Tabata cycle, get back on. There's ways to incorporate it and kind of mix it in there. I think it's great to utilize it all. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was looking up some stuff earlier, and one explanation of it is, as far as LISS goes, it's very effective in metabolizing fat for energy consumption by the body. However, it's not that great at accessing and breaking down stored fat, which is actually one reason I think that another reason that we do blend, not just to train both capacities of your body and to have up and down as far as those levels, but by balancing that, instead of doing just steady state 5 to 7 days a week, and I'm on the treadmill for 2 hours, and I've only lost 10 pounds. Even though it can have an impact, it's going to take you much longer unless you kind of blend those two worlds, like
for sure,
like we all try to incorporate and do.
Yeah, I did want to bring up too, because I did look up the study, findings according to the Journal of Sports Science Medicine. Then it was published in 2015 about the effects of high intensity interval training. And what they determined was higher intensity exercise has been shown to be a trigger for acute myocardial infarction in middle-aged and older individuals. So those of you doing the CrossFit, if you're doing, or any HIIT training, if you're doing it more than 2 days a week, you could be doing more damage to your heart. You may not notice, and you may not notice right away, but it's something you may be doing, so you gotta be careful. It shouldn't be done every day.
Right.
But yes, it should be done. But then it went on to say that the intensity of exercise in athletic individuals may lead to adverse cardiac remodeling also. So it's just something to consider when you're thinking about adding HIIT to your workout. Yes, you want it, just don't do it 5 days a week.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with your fitness levels. No matter how you look at it, LISS, whether you're doing a high intensity interval or you're doing LISS, you got to look at your fitness level. And especially if you have a trainer, they've got to look at where you're at. Like HomeFit, for example, we meet you where you're at. That's a very important aspect of kind of what we do. If you're not ready to get into high intensity interval training, then start with LISS. It's not the end of the world to build up your strength. For example, because I love progressions and degression. Is that the right word? Degressions? You like progressions for, as far as getting on into like LISS training or something like that. Starting on the treadmill is a good way to progress from the treadmill. For me, all my ladies, you have to do an incline walk without holding the treadmill with your hands on your head. That opens up your lungs. It gets you moving. You burn a lot more calories with your hands on your head. It also lifts your butt at the same time. It's a true story.
You're the butt guy.
It's a true story.
It's a true story. But incline walking without holding a treadmill, you burn so many more calories by doing something like that. Then you can maybe go to the art trainer or something like that. But I think knowing where you're at in your fitness level and slowly incorporating HIIT training. Like whenever I want to get back into shape, that's what I would do. I would do LISS training, but I would incorporate maybe one Tabata a couple of days a week.
That's what I was gonna say is like, so know where your fitness level is, but also know where you want to go.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, don't just dive into it for the sake of I got to lose weight, because it's so generic. And there are ways. And I'm actually, again, I've been a component of the steady state for a long time because it's something that I would do. A lot of times people ask me, what's better to do, cardio before or after you
That's
lift
what I
weights
want
or
to talk
whatever.
about.
My thought, no,
strong opinion on that.
yeah, okay, and no, that's why I'm excited to bring this up, because there's all kinds of scientific research that says this. I always lean towards behavioral first. So my response is, what are you more likely to do? Like for me, if I lift first, there's a chance I'm gonna tell myself how to do cardio. So I'll do cardio beforehand and then I'll lift. But that's behaviorally. But I understand.
It's interesting.
But
that's interesting.
That's just the way I look at it, because I have people that they're going to get in. If they don't structure it right, they're not going to listen to what I tell them to do.
Sure.
Right. And there's one that's better than the other, but how much better? Is it really worth it if they're not going to do it?
If you're not going to do it. But if you had to put your hammer down, you would say.
It's a huge requirement, because there's been so many scientific studies known, and you can feel it with your body. Let's say, and I'll kind of tell you about how I do my training. All of my clients do strength training number one, but they do it a certain way where you're burning so many calories. You're doing supersets, you're constantly moving. Let's say, for example, like this week, for example, we did heavy squats. We did 8 sets of like 4 to 6 reps. In between each set, you had a little bit of a HIIT movement, but low intensity. So jumping jack, high knees to keep your heart rate up, whatever. So then by doing supersets, let's say, for example, you're doing like seated cable rows and then push-ups. Your superset knows you're working a push movement, pull movement, whatever. You're keeping your heart rate up. You're burning calories. So my philosophy is you do strength training first. Period.
Well, yeah, no, science says so. Scientifically, that is correct.
Yes.
And one reason on top of that,
result based.
Well, yeah, that's yeah. So and that's what most people want to look for is results based. One of the primary reasons is going back to that blood glucose level. If you go and do cardio beforehand, especially if it's a steady state, you're going to start pulling all that out of your muscles. So that when you get into the actual weightlifting, you're not going to be able to, or your full workout, you're not going to be able to perform.
That's exactly how I explain that to people and why. Because you want to be fresh and into your weight training.
That's the same thing with stretching before.
Ooh.
Before you do weight training, used to be, I mean, when I was in school, an athlete, they would make us sit and do static stretches before.
Yeah, you
our
never
workouts.
do that.
Don't do
You
that.
always do dynamic warm up, dynamic stretches before.
And then-
Because I learned this when I was in the Marine Corps. Is I was always confused as to we would never stretch before we trained. We would have like a PFT, like a personal fitness test, and we would go straight into the pull ups, not do anything. And I asked, I was a little wide-eyed 18. I'm like, well, and he was like, well, if you stretch, you're going to tire your muscles out before you do that.
That's one. I mean, that's one example of it.
Yeah.
Other one is you're kind of turning them off. You're kind of decreasing the elasticity of the performance of the muscle. The one that set into my brain, I had a professor of mine say, "Do you ever see a dog stretch before he chases a car?"
Sure. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean,
And I was like, holy crap. I was like, that makes sense. And what we mean by dynamic stretches is you'll see us do like, walking lunges, stuff that's actually moving and increasing
Right.
mobility and warming your muscles, but
The
you're not
couple core
holding.
movements, yeah.
You're not holding for more than 2-3 seconds,
Right.
maybe up to 5.
I think
Go for it.
watching professional soccer
Oh yeah.
is the best way to understand what a dynamic
go to a
warm-up
basketball
is.
game.
They will
Go
sit and they'll go
professional
through all these routines. You watch them, and that's a dynamic warm-up. That's
Actually, any sporting event that you go to, and those guys are the elite level professional athletes. If you see, even if you go to like an NBA basketball game, they come out there. Those guys will do shoot around for 40 minutes before they stretch.
And then they'll have a dynamic. Like
Then they'll
they
have a
always have. They
dynamic
all have a
too.
strength coach that takes them through their specific movement.
Yeah. So
Open
that's
up
that's.
those.
I'm glad we brought that. It's very important. I know we're kind of getting off.
Yeah.
Kind of
We'll
not
have
too
to.
bad.
I think we should designate one.
Yeah, that's
deeper
because
into
that's
stretching.
it's. I think it's really really important that people, because I had someone ask me the other day, why do we never stretch before we train? Well, like if you're doing leg day or something, like my warm up for you is going to be like leg extensions, lunges.
Sure.
You're firing. Everything's on your lower body is firing. We'll do a core movement, get your core like engaged, get yourself moving, and then after you train, maybe if I have. Maybe I tell you to do LISS after you do, some kind of strength training. You can stretch before you do LISS.
Right.
If that's what you can do it after, or you can foam roll. I'm not use, but a lot of people will stretch before they
Yeah.
start
And
to
don't-
train, and
don't do it.
You don't
That-
need to do that.
Yeah, that podcast, when we do a next one, I think it should be stretching and foam rolling together.
oh yeah.
Because I think
That's
they're both
very-
going to talk about, and then even like proprioceptive, neuromuscular stretching, and all this other stuff, PNF stretching.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
going over what exactly a dynamic warm up is,
Right.
what it means, and how you kind of get into it. This
Hey,
is a
why?
conversation we should have.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
on
why
here.
don't we do it?
No.
So I got 2 nerdy things that I want to cover, but I
Bring
mean,
it.
we can keep going.
No.
It's kind of
Get nerdy,
Anything
go.
else we want to talk about with like lifting versus cardio based? Like,
Okay.
I think that's really important that
Right.
we kind of hammer that just the different reasons of way you want to sway one way or sway the other way depending on what your goal is. Like you said, if you're more prone to do cardio than you are lifting weights, then lift weights first. If you're more prone to lift weights and then to do cardio, then maybe doing cardio first, getting out of, but you still want to have that strength and
right.
Both
Yeah, you
components.
got to do it. That's what we recommend. I mean, but we did clearly say as far as your body's performance, you're going to do better if you actually do the work.
But it's interesting looking at from like a behavioral standpoint.
Yeah, that's just the thing. I just learned that over the years because people like you throw it in there,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're not going to adopt it. They're like,
Right.
how did you get to this? I'm like, I had to go.
Right,
I
right.
did my list, but I had to go back to work, so
Right.
I just thought I
Didn't do
did
cardio.
5 minutes of cardio, and
Right.
I'm like, well, your goal is to do this.
Mine was always to cut out
And then
the
that's when you're
stretching.
just checking about, you got 5 minutes, well then do a Tabata cycle. Instead. Yeah.
So we're just trying to establish norms. Once you think about it, don't be overwhelmed
Yeah.
by it. That's the hard thing is our industry, both fitness and nutrition, is just blanketed with so
Oof.
much junk out there, and people don't know where to go. But if you start between the ears, you're going to do a lot better.
That's
I
right.
think
We're
if you
listening to
start
people
thinking-
like us and know what we're talking about.
Right. All right. 2 things. So delayed onset muscle soreness.
Oh, I know. Stop.
Not everybody. I don't think everybody understands this yet. More people than not do. Now, obviously, I heard growing up, oh, it's lactic acid. Oh, it's a lactic acid buildup in the muscle. It's not true. Now you do develop lactic acid in the muscle, but then your body buffers it out, gets it out. It's usually like within a day, maybe.
Now, is that soreness or because DOMS is a little bit past being sore?
It is. That's why it's called delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, here's the thing. Usually on average, so It's I recommend you look it up. So it's called micro tears, micro trauma.
Yeah.
So it's on the surface of your muscle. It's not necessarily the density. If you tear the density of the muscle, you've actually torn the muscle fiber.
Right, and you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do it. So you have like these micro tears because you're stressing the muscle, which controlled stress on your body is what makes it improve. So they actually splinter. If you look it up, you'll see like these videos, or like these, well, you see videos, but like images of like these just partial tears in the muscle. It doesn't necessarily, and that's why you're working out.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wanting to get size, that's one reason it causes them to swell when they repair. The reason it's delayed, it should be delayed. If you're sore like within 24 hours, you've overdone it.
Right.
Too much. If it's 2 or 3 days later, that's the prime thing. The reason the soreness sets in is when those fibers start to heal. They start to repair. Your body, there's inflammation in those muscles. They're trying to come back together. And that's just where a lot of that soreness is. That's why I said like the steady state can be good in helping with
To help it.
repair.
For sure.
Because you're bringing fresh blood flow. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I feel like
So inflammation in your body, in some cases is not good, but that's exactly what you're trying to do is create that inflammation, that rebuilding. And then the protein is really important then too, making sure you're supplying it because that's what supplies that regrowth. Is the protein.
Well, that's actually, and that's why even though I know we said the other day that you don't have to have your protein right after your workout.
Not right after, but you have to have it in your
But
diet.
there are a lot of studies that shows when you do intake it within that window, that protein, especially if you have like a maltodextrin or some type of kind of sugar, which also spikes your blood sugar, it takes that protein straight back and starts repairing those muscles back faster. So that's why you hear more of that.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? I have one more topic.
No, that's good.
Sorry.
So to break
So
it down, dummy,
Yep.
when you're exercising, you're tearing your muscle fibers.
Just the surface.
Surface.
around
The
it
surface.
usually, yeah.
And if you get, whenever you tear so you're saying that you always tear the muscle fiber, the surface of them whenever you train. That's why you feel
More,
That's why you
especially when you're doing anaerobic.
Yeah.
If you do
right.
aerobic stuff, it's not.
And it's
But if
right.
you're lifting
If
or
you're a
whatever,
strength trainer or something like that, you're essentially
Strength
tearing the surface. You get too deep, you've actually torn the actual muscle.
well,
muscle.
you just done too much, yeah.
Right, and then so you're saying that because a lot of people say, well, it's always worse the second day after.
That's why. That's good.
That's a good thing. So
Yeah.
make sure you guys understand that, okay? Make sure you guys get that. That's why. That's where
He's
you
tapping
want,
you on the head in case you didn't
that's
know.
where you want. They can see it right there. That's where they want. You want to be sore a couple of days after.
Right.
Right. Right.
So
Just
that-
kind of break it down, dummy. Yeah.
Yes.
So DOMS is not anything. It's not what a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, it's not lactic acid that you can just work out of your system. It's
But being sore is different than DOMS, correct? Just
No.
being sore, they're the same thing.
yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So I've always looked at delayed onset muscle syndrome as a little bit past that.
But you
really
call it
sore.
syndrome. It's actually
It's a
soreness.
Oh, okay, I thought it was
Soreness.
syndrome. Okay.
Now you do have other things that which we could easily get into.
Rhombo, whatever, rhombo.
Rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's muscle. That actually stands for muscle death.
Nice.
That means you've done too much to the point that your muscle could not recover.
Yeah.
And you can actually those muscle
yourself.
fibers will actually
Die.
die.
Like
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, and so if I don't know if you can actually recruit them back or not, but that's a whole other thing too as far as muscle fiber recruitment. Man, I want to get into type 2 and type it.
What was that? What was your other?
No, my other one's about VO2 max and like
Okay.
marathon runners.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry, y'all.
Not
I'm super nerdy today.
I don't care.
I freaking love this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other one. So we're talking about high intensity. We're talking about fartleks earlier.
Fartlek.
See, it's fun to say.
Oh God. Anyway, so you think about distance runners, marathoners, swimmers, definitely to that component. So we're talking about like blood lactate. That's actually one of the reasons that made me think about it. So you do have a lactic acid buildup when you're pushing your body past the ability to absorb and use oxygen.
Right.
Which that's why it becomes more anaerobic. Even if you're not doing weightlifting, if you're going past your what's called your lactate threshold, that's when your body you're past it, and so then you actually start to build up like lactic acid in your muscle. So we actually, when I first moved to Birmingham, I was part of a sports lab. I think I mentioned this to you the last time we did it. But anyway, it's one thing that we would actually do, and this is what's neat. One reason that fartleks help is it's kind of testing your energy systems, but then you can also do threshold training because you're initially you're given so much of a VO. You're born with like a VO2 max like capacity, but you can improve it. But a lot of people still use Lance Armstrong as an example. Of course, you can go into blood doping, but that's another scenario. But he had a much higher, like these swimmers, where Michael Phelps would be a better example. Like extremely high. I don't know what his percentage is. If it's like probably in the 80s, maybe 80%. Like volume of oxygen is how much body.
That's why he's able to kill it.
Because he can continue going. Me, I was a lineman. I have like a capacity of like 50. So if I go 6 seconds, I'm winded. So it's probably why HIIT training actually is better for me. But anyway, so
ding, ding, ding.
Threshold training, when you know what your percentage level is or your marker, a lot of times that's by pace or time. So people don't know what their mile splits are or whatever. I'm almost done.
No, you're good.
But if we would actually check, like you would prick your finger and check your lactate level in your bloodstream. So then we could more aggressively and more specifically kind of know when you're hitting that level. And then even if you drop it down just a slightly less cadence, you can start getting your body to bump up its capacity to be able to actually utilize
So it's that
oxygen.
lower.
So it's upper and lower. So
It's
yeah,
that
I
threshold.
mean, it's not exact as far as like a big HIIT training goes altogether, but it just made me think about a couple of other things.
Fun. Well, it's neat. I mean, just how to make the improvements. Because if you just keep doing the same stuff,
Right.
you're not going to improve.
You get stuck.
I got into health and wellness because of the complexity of the human body and the mind
It is
and
complex.
the abilities that you can actually take to improve it, other than the things you can do wrong to wreck it.
I mean, think about it. Just this is different on everybody. Just your fingerprint.
Your fingerprint.
Yeah, so why would exercising be the same for everyone?
Right.
If you think about it.
But if this is different,
Pick it up.
and you
drop
have
it.
the whole body,
Sure.
put it all together. I'm like, there
If
is
you look at the kidney,
nobody created like
would,
you.
We would completely be destroyed if we didn't have kidneys.
Huh?
Sorry, that's just the function of the kidney, like how important it is. I'm just saying, like, if you just think about it. Like,
Well, we
you
would
know,
without our brain too.
Well, of course.
Without the heart.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, your brain actually named itself.
How did it name itself?
The brain named itself brain.
Oh,
Who else
yes, it
named the
did.
brain? Knowledge is. Anyone here out there?
That should be that mind
right.
emoji.
Awesome. All right. Recap it.
Sweet. Recap it. So we talked about HIIT and LISS, just different levels, pros, cons. Like I said, we didn't really swing towards saying HIIT's better over LISS and blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're here to do.
Combo is good.
The combo, yes. That's what I think was generally what we discussed. It's doing both of them is highly effective. I mean, why not? It's got different benefits, different pros
Varieties
to
of
it.
spice of life.
Yeah, and it's keeping your body guessing and
Spice of life.
the spice of life.
Love it.
That could be the name of this episode.
Ah, there you go.
The spice of life. Variety. So, we got any saved rounds on it? Anything else we want to add? But HIIT and LISS?
Nope, there's pros and cons to doing both all the time. I would just say incorporate a little bit of everything.
For sure.
If you have questions, if you're wanting more specifics on, hey, give me an example or a workout to try, comment wherever the platform is. We'll go and find it and give you some responses on that.
Yeah, also don't forget that HomeFit Consulting also does online coaching, and I know that we implement a lot of LISS and HIIT training in there, and we explain it and different things like that. So if you guys want a sample program or something like that, like you said, comment. We'll reach out to you, or you can visit their website, homefitconsulting.com as well, and check out just the different things they got going on there too. Mm-hmm. So I think we've got a lot of topics to cover next week. So it looks like we'll talk about that. We've got a lot of cool topics for next week.
Yeah, definitely.
So, thanks for listening to the second episode. A little bit cleaner than the first one. No pin clicking, Matthew. And then, thanks to you guys listening. And you guys have a blessed life and be awesome.